So, um, good evening, everyone. So, I want to know if you can hear me. So, please kindly drop comments on the comment box so that I'll be sure that you can hear me before I start the class. Because I need someone to comment, please. Please, if you are here, just say hi. Drop hi for me. Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mabel. So, I believe that someone can hear me now. Then, if you cannot hear me anymore, please kindly drop a message. I have other systems that I'm able to, to notice if you can hear me or not. Then another thing, can you see the board clearly? Can you see it clearly? Can we go with that? Are we cool with that? Can you let me know if you can see the whiteboard clearly? Very clear. Thank you. So let's start. So in our today class, so we're looking at proposal outline. Then we'll be looking at proposal outline. Then we'll be looking at the importance of proposal in the research. So then I'll forget to welcome you back to iOS YouTube channel. So today we are going to base on an emphasis on how to develop a research proposal in the corner of So let's go. So now, this is the proposal outline at the page. You need the everything is here from 1.1 to 1.10. But before we start, what is a proposal? You have been hearing about proposal or there from your supervisor, from your course mates, from your seniors. A proposal is just something like business proposal. Research proposal is something as You know when they say proposal, propose, like you want to propose. And when they are talking about propose, let's use a couple's example. When we are talking about propose, that means we are not talking about a plan to marry. Now, proposal or proposed is involves something like we are talking about planning. The fundamental idea behind proposal is planning. So when you propose to your girlfriend or your fiancé now, that means you have a plan to marry. So that means that there is a fundamental plan. The same thing is applicable to research proposal. So if you are talking about research proposal now, that means we are talking about a formal plan that explain, you can see, a formal plan that explain what you want to study, how you want to study it, and why it is important. And that's why I have to come with this idea for you. WHW. You can see the idea? The idea behind the proposal is WHW. That is, this is telling you that the proposal is just like a formal plan. The proposal is just like a formal plan that wants to explain what you want to study. You study. How you want to study it. How? How do you want to study it? Then why is your studies important? And that is why most supervisor always request for your proposal. It doesn't mean for them to ask for your proposal, for you to bring proposal means you have started your research or you have started your final year project. No, the supervisor want to see your idea and your knowledge based on the topic you propose. The supervisor want to see what you actually want to study. The supervisor want to see how you want to study it, how you want to carry out the study. And the supervisor want to see why the study is important before they will approve your topic. You working on a proposal doesn't mean you have started a topic or you have started research work. No. Your supervisor want to test your knowledge about the proposed topic. So don't forget, I said that a proposal is a formal plan. It's a plan. Proposal is a plan, just a plan, just like you want to marry husband and wife. You now propose your girlfriend or your fiancé. So it's a formal plan that explains these three concepts: what, how, and why. what you want to study, the topic, the variable in the topic. How do you want to study it? Are you using primary data, secondary data, or you are using content analysis, or you are using maybe you want to use XPSS tools, or you want to use EV. Then why the study is important? Who are the beneficiary of the study? So that is what we are looking at here. I'm looking for my oh my god, I can't find it. Sorry, permit me to use this. I can't find. Okay. Well, now I've explained what proposal is for you guys. I've explained what we mean by proposal for you guys. Now, the first thing under proposal is introduction. The first thing under proposal is introduction. Introduction. Then your introduction is you are explaining the background to the story. I asterisk this place because some always call it background of the study, and some always denote it as background of the study. But it is more academically for you to use background to the study. So it is advisable to use background to the study rather than background. So because you are introducing the study source. So the first thing in your proposal is introduction. Sorry, I want to see. Okay. The first thing in your proposal is introduction, which is explaining the background to the story. Then what do you want to explain in your background story? Your background story is to introduce your topic to us. Introduce your topic to your supervisor. You want to introduce your study to a layman that's not even in your field to understand what your topic is. For example, as an economics student, when you are looking at let's be this particular example, this particular topic that I used to use as example, like when we are talking about the determinants, the determinants of e-commerce platform, the determinants of e-commerce platform. Now, this is a topic. Okay, sorry. The determinant of customer loyalty. Sorry, don't forget customer loyalty. Determinant of customer loyalty on e-commerce platform. Now, this is a topic. Now, how do we want to understand what your topic is? That is what the introduction is talking about. The introduction will give us the a summary or overall information of what, let's just say overall information of what your topic is talking about. You want to introduce your topic to us. Then what we are doing is that the first thing under your introduction or background to the study is to identify your dependent variable. In your background to the study, your dependent variable we have to understand this is your dependent variable. And dependent variable here is customer loyalty. So if you want to start your background to the study, it's better you start with customer loyalty and e-commerce platform, because you will start your explanation under the background of the study by giving us the concept of what customer loyalty is under the background study. Then you now tailor it and link it. You link it to your independent variable. You can see, you link it to your independent variable. So under the background to the study, we have to understand both your dependent and independent variable. And what do you mean by independent and dependent variable? Independent variables are variables that affect or influence the dependent variable. That is what I mean. Is dependent variable is a factor that is depending on independent variable. How do I want to explain this? It's just like, let me use another example so that you can easily get it. Okay, let's stick to this example. We said customer loyalty is dependent variable. That means for customer to be patronizing you frequent patronage, sorry. The frequent patronage indicates customer loyalty, means customer loyalty. Then there might be some factors that leads to that. Yes, customer cannot only be loyal to you because he just wants to be loyal to you. No, it is something that will influence that decision for a particular customer or a set of customer or a set of group of people keep patronizing time to time. You are not the only one producing the product. You are not the only one rendering that service. So, for example, why are they patronizing you? Why are they loyal to you? Those things are the determinant. Those things are the independent variable. So what we are now talking about dependent variable is that it can influence it positively and it can influence it negatively. So if customer loyalty cannot occur without any effects, that's what we are saying. Somebody cannot just be coming to patronizing you without any effect, without any tangible reason associated with it. For example, we're now looking at the determinants of customer loyalty. That means these determinants are the independent variable. Let me put it here. The determinants are the independent variable that influence customer decision to be patronizing you time to time. And because frequent patronage is what we mean by customer loyalty. So then, if you're not looking like at the determinant, what are the determinants? Price can be the determinant. Price of the goods. Customer satisfaction can be determinant. Customer satisfaction. Logistic and delivery, quick delivery and accurate delivery. So all these things are determinant. So if your price is relatively low to the other firms or other e-commerce platform that produce similar products or that render similar service, people would prefer to be patronizing you than people that they have higher price. So some people can be coming to you not just because they like you, but they are coming to you because of your price is relatively low than the other competitors. So price is one of the determinants that can influence customer loyalty. Some people will stop patronizing you the moment you change your price. So I'm just telling you that in your topic, you should know that we have dependent and independent variable, and that is what we want you to showcase to us in the background of the story. Explain your dependent variable. Your explanation will start from dependent variable. Then you link it directly to what independent variable, and now explain the positive and the negative effects that we can have. You can easily tell us that because from there we'll be able to identify our problem. You can easily tell us that price as a determinant that can influence customer loyalties. So higher price can lay off customers or discourage customer from patronage or for patronize a particular e-commerce platform. Do you get? So that is the determinant. So and in that your background study, we have been seeing the ingredients of problems in it. You'll be telling us the positive and the negative impact, the positive and the negative influence. So mind you, the first thing you start with is introduction, which is the background study. And I explained to you that under your background study, what you need to explain is both dependent and independent variable and how they link together, how dependent affects independence. So in each paragraph, the first paragraph should be talking about your dependent variable. Then the second paragraph, we have talking about your independent variables. Don't forget, we can have one dependent variable, but we can have more than one independent variable. That is one factor. Yes, we have more than one factor that we are affecting dependent. Some people, you can understand that some firms are together producing similar products and they are selling the same price. Similar products in the sense that it is a close substitute, for example, Milo and Bonvita, and at the same price, but yet some people will be patronizing Milo more than Bonvita at still the same price. What I'm telling you is that there are still other factors that can influence dependent variable. So price cannot be only the factor. Then you look at customer satisfaction. How's their customer care? Do they provide quality goods? Did they provide did they follow the normal quantity that they're supposed to give? Because some people tell you that the quantity is at something that 330 cm, and when you check it you see that it's something like it's something like 15 cm as a kind of measurement. So that's what we are talking about customer satisfaction. For example, some people stop using MTN because their customer service is bad. I'm just using that example. For example, it's not actually. So some people neglect to be using a particular network because of the infrastructural technology of that network. So all those things are factors. Those are things you need to explain under on our grant study. Then sorry for the break, I'm just checking. So then we move on to what we call problem statement. Problem statement. So that is statement. You can call it problem statement and so that you can call it statement of the problem. So you can call it problem statement and so that you can call it statement of the problem. So the statement of the problem is coming directly from your background to the story. That is, you are deducting the problem from your background story. So the statement of the problem here is you telling us the problem that probably the study can encounter relating to your topic. So that is the essence of research. That is the importance of research. Research only exists because there is a problem that I want to solve. When there is no problem, then there is no research. So if you cannot identify a problem from your study, then that's not a research. That's not a topic. So what I'm saying here is that okay, we are talking about dependent and independent variables that are in the study. Then by using this particular topic, I can indicate that price higher price is a problem. Uh, Ineffective customer satisfaction is a problem that can affect is a problem that can affect customer loyalty. Inadequate inadequate payment system. Probably when they are making payment through e-commerce platform, their payment failed and they don't refund them. You will not go back and patronize e-commerce platform again. So if you have your payment fail and they fail to refund you. So inadequate payment system. All these things are problems that you need to explain under system of the problem. And now, most important thing is the research gap. Research gap. The research gap is another important factor. So, because from your problem, you have to determine the gap. Because if you are talking about a certain topic, you are not the first person that will work on that particular topic or that will work do research on that particular study. But you have to look at what is going to make your own topic to be different. For example, this particular topic is of interest to me. It's my own topic. It's a topic that I've worked on. But what makes my own topic to be different from other topics or other research is that other researchers always look at trust as a as independent variable on customer loyalty. Some look at only customer satisfaction. Some look at only customer satisfaction on customer loyalty. But in my own study, I comprise the independent variables together in a situation whereby I have more than one, in fact, I have more than three or four independent variables. This indicates that I'm looking at the conjunctions of more than two independent variables together on a single dependent variable. So this already leads to what we call research gap. So this makes my own study different from others. So that is a problem. That's the place I want to fill, and that makes the study important because no researcher have worked on both. I've worked on payment system. I've worked on customer satisfaction. I've worked on logistic and delivery, and checking the effects of all of them on customer loyalty. So they singularly check the effect of one independent variable on customers' loyalty. So this is what we mean by research gap. Then what the other researcher failed to cover, you will see that one or notice that one when you are checking the articles on that topic that is similar to your topics. You see that limitation of the study. You want to choose a topic. So the next thing is the research question. Research question is coming directly from statement of the problem. Research question is coming directly from statement of the problem. So, okay, you will have your research questions from, for example, we are looking at, let's say we are looking at three independent variables. Let's say that we are looking at three independent variables. So now I want to deduct my research question. I can be telling you that does high price affects customer loyalty. I deduce these things from my state of the problem because in my state of the problem, I've already stated that high price is one of the problems we are facing on customer loyalty in e-commerce platform. So if the price of e-commerce platforms is higher than traditional markets, which is a market whereby you can interact face to face, people will discourage to patronize or making use of that platform. So I'm just using this one example. So your research question is going to be qualitative. So and most important thing I want to know, your research questions, aim of the study, and hypothesis must be talking about the same thing. The idea must be all about the same thing. So the idea must be all about the same thing. So the research question is talking about the high price. Does high price affect customer loyalty? Does high price affect customer loyalty? So, sorry, I'm trying to. Does high price affect customer loyalty? So the first thing we look at is what is the aim? Now another important thing there is under 1.4 is aim and objective. So we only have one aim, and your topic is your aim. Then what are the objectives you want to use to achieve that aim? So the objectives is going to be anything one but more than one. So the aim is that we want to check the effects of or impact of these determinants on customer loyalty. Then they have our objective in that okay, to check to examine the effects of on customer loyalty. That is to examine the effects of price on customer loyalties. To analyze the effect of um, customer satisfaction on customer loyalties. To analyze the influence of payment system of customer. You can see that what I've been saying from background to the study is going in line with statement of the problem, is going in line with research question, and is going to in line with aim of the study, aim and objective. And it's going in line with aim and objective. So the hypothesis now, the hypothesis is now this is very important. Some study you need to the hypothesis might put the hypothesis or you might not put the hypothesis. So what I'm saying here is that some study, some study have if you choose to put an hypothesis, I want to explain the meaning of hypothesis to you very well. Sorry, I just have a little distraction during the class. So the hypothesis, what is an hypothesis? Let me start with that. An hypothesis is just a mere assumption. An assumption you have that this should be like this. That's an assumption. That is not yet subjected to any text. An hypothesis is a mere assumption that is not yet subjected to any text. So it's only when an hypothesis is in text and we now realize that it is valid, that's when we can accept or reject it. And we have two sets of hypotheses. We have null hypothesis and we have alternate hypothesis. So the alternate hypothesis is the one that with H1 and the null hypothesis is the one that with H2. You know that we said an hypothesis is just an assumption. You assume it. You understand? And you don't have an accurate data, you have not measured it, you have not tested it, you just assume. Just for example, you said my somebody I don't know, you don't have information about that person, and you said that person is a bad person. You don't know the person, though. You don't have any information about it, though. Just because the way that person is looking at you, that shows that that person is a bad person. No, that is just an assumption. You just assume it. You don't have an accurate data to check. You don't have anything to test. Sorry, I have to work on it. Sorry. So you don't have any facts. You don't have an accurate data. You don't have any facts to confirm that that person is a bad person. So that's just an hypothesis. So now the two agents of hypothesis that we are talking about is non-hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. So non-hypothesis will be supporting, while alternate hypothesis will be opposing it. Non-hypothesis will be supporting it, alternate hypothesis will be negating your statement. So if you are saying high price, you can now check that if null hypothesis is telling us that high price cannot affect customer loyalties, then sorry, if non hypothesis said yes, it's non hypothesis that negates. If non hypothesis say that high price cannot, you know that's negate, affect customer loyalties, then alternate hypothesis will tell you that high price can, you know, high price can affect customer loyalty. Then there's now a disagreement between them. Then it now suggested to text by you generating data and now do your analysis and check which one are you going to support, which one are you going to reject, or which one are you going to accept. So I believe that you guys are getting something. We don't have much time. Then significance of the study. Significance of the study is that what is the importance of your study? Who are the beneficiary of your study? Why is that topic is important? Now, for this topic now, it is important to the e-commerce platform owner like Jumia. They can gain something from your conclusion or recommendation. Like Temu, they can read your paper and say, okay, guy, come, let's implement your idea. Like Alibaba, all these are e-commerce platforms. So your study is going to be beneficial or important to them. Then customers that patronize e-commerce. You understand? The stakeholders like that. So you need signal of authority, you have to tell us who are the beneficiary of the study. Then scope of the study. Scope of the study. Now, this analysis of the scope of the study can come in two dimensions. Under the scope of the study, what determine your scope of the study? Either you are using primary scope, either you are using primary data or you are using secondary data. So if you are using primary data, the scope of the study will be telling us if you are using primary data, the scope of the study here will be telling us your case study. Where is your case study? You tell us. Your scope of the study under primary data want to show us where you want your analysis to capture. For example, this um, e-commerce platform, what even make this research, this particular topic to be different from other topics that they have never been examined in schools, in an higher institutions. So, but this one carry out in higher institutions, which is University of Ibadan. Do you understand? So that is even maybe different from other one. So some people case of the study can be within Ibadan. E-commerce platform in Ibadan. You want to check the effects. How does it operate in Ibadan? It can be in Oyo State, which is not more than Ibadan. But checking a whole Nigeria will be high road because how many you want to generate. So you can check your scope of study cannot just be local governments, maybe Ibadan, not local governments, or any local government. That's for the primary data. But the scope of the study for the secondary data will be speaking of the range of the year you are looking at. For example, in the secondary data, you might be looking at the data from 2010 to 2025. That's the scope. That's what your research is covering. You understand? So, but for the primary data, we'll be talking about the case study. So, definition of terms. So, you have to give us some terms that relate to your study. You have to give us some terms that relate to your field of study. I mean, your academic field of study. For example, if you are in economics, there are some terms that are telling us that somebody that is a mechanical engineer will not understand. That's what you are going to put down that definition of term. Some key concepts, some key terms, some key terms. I want to look at it's just like when I'm talking about logistic regression. Logistic regression will be easily understand with someone that is the faculty of management and economics. But somebody in the pure science like mechanical engineering will not understand logistic regression. So that the definition of terms you give us the meaning of logistic regression so that people that are going through your paper by reading this oh when they get to some certain point they are saying what's the meaning of logistic regression then you have to go back to your what to your definition of that if they find anything confusing or more technical they will need to go back to the definition of that to understand the concept you are explaining if you don't that shows that means if you don't explain it under your conceptual review because under the literature review under the literature review sorry before the methodology, before the 1.9 methodology, we supposed to have literature review. This supposed to be 1.10, this supposed to be 1.11. The 1.9 should be literature review. Sorry. Because your proposal is to have So brief explanation of your literature review. So and your literature review is comprised of three. We have conceptual review, we have theoretical review, we have empirical review. We have conceptual review, we have theoretical review, and we have empirical review. So, and that's why I'm saying that the concept you are explaining, you need to explain the concept of your dependent variable and your independent variable very well. Very, very well. So here we have to explain deeply what customer loyalty is and what are people's have said about customer loyalty. That's your citation, your references. What are some scholars have defined customer loyalty as? Then your independent variables like price. What's the meaning of price? Price is the value attached to goods and services. That's some definition. We cite a lot of definition and a lot of observation and idea that explain price very well. Like customer satisfaction, you explain it. I think if all these factors are under your independent variable, under the conceptual review, like payment system, logistic and delivery, you explain it. Then theoretical framework. To every study, there's always be a theory that underpins that study. There always be a theory. Like for this one now, the theory that underpins this topic is CAM, that is technology adaptation model. Technology adaptation model is theory that, so you review the theory that underpin that study. Although we can have, yeah, yes, we can have more than two theories when you want to review theory. Yes, but max minimum of two theories for you to review. One will be covering your independent variables and one will be covering your dependent. So whatever theory you want to review in your research, the theory must be explaining your dependent variable and must be explaining your independent variable. That's why you can have two theories or more than two. So if you are using one theory to explain your independent variable, then you're using one theory to explain your dependent variable. So you can have four or five theories here, but there will be something that will call theoretical framework. You know, I said this is theoretical review. Theories, but theoretical framework can only be one. That's the most important theory from the theory that you review that that is more suitable and in line with your what? With your topic. That's what we look at theoretical. Then empirical review. What other scholars have the result of other scholars that have worked on the similar topic that relates to your own. What that means is that if you are talking about the terminal of customer identity on e-commerce now, some people are already working on that topic or something related to that topic or something close to that topic. So you need to cite their papers. You need to cite their names. Okay, okay, under the empirical review now, what are you going to be looking at then? You'll be looking at their topic, you tell us their topic, you tell us their the method they use, methodology. You tell us the method they use, is it primary or secondary data? You tell us their results. Then you tell us their conclusion and recommendation of each. So that's what we mean by empirical